Good evening and thanks for joining us. It's only been 100 days since the first reports of a deadly new virus emerged in China. And look where we are. Almost every aspect of our life has changed in every corner of the world. Almost 100,000 people have died and billions are living under lockdown. Today, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told Canadians to brace themselves for a long road ahead.
Our healthcare systems across the country are coping for the time being. But we're at a fork in the road between the best and the worst possible outcomes. The initial peak, the top of the curve, may be in late spring with the end of the first wave in the summer. There will likely be smaller outbreaks for a number of months after that. This will be the new normal until a vaccine is developed.
The new normal. That projection is based on new disease modeling that was released today. These are projections, not certainties. In the worst-case scenario, if Canada had done nothing, the federal model projects 300,000 people could have died. Putting in all the public health measures, physical distancing, shutting down non-essential businesses, asking people to stay home has slowed the spread. But a rise in deaths is still expected. Even with tight restrictions staying in place, it's projected between 11,000 to 22,000 people in Canada could die.
We cannot prevent every death, but we must prevent all the deaths that we can. We all play a role in what the future will hold for Canada's COVID-19 trajectory. We must continue to control the epidemic using tried and true public health measures.
The best possible outcome is what everyone, of course, wants, but the path to get there will not be easy. In our top story tonight, Mike Couteur takes us through the projections and how our behavior has a direct impact on what happens next.
On the anniversary of Vimy Ridge, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to call on Canadians to do their part in the battle against COVID-19.
Over 100 years ago today, Canadians showed what metal we are made of. I know each of us will rise to be worthy of the legacy of the heroes that built this country.
An inspiring message on a day where Canadians face some sobering stats from public health officials. The most reliable forecasts only look at the short term, but even those numbers are grim.
Based on the case fatality rate to date, this could mean we reach between 500 and 700 total deaths in Canada by next week.
Canada's top doctor presented 3 scenarios, one with no epidemic controls, a second with some controls like physical distancing, and a third where strong controls were used. That's where Canada is now. Officials just aren't sure how far along the line we are.
You can't tell whether you've reached the peak until after the peak had actually been realized.
Officials also compared Canada to the rest of the world, showing we're right in the middle of the pack. The good news is that COVID-19 hit our shores later than others, allowing us to learn from other countries and not repeat their mistakes, like ordering physical distancing early and extending it for the foreseeable future.
On the downward trend on the other side of the curve, it will be equally critical to keep up with our control measures. If we let up, new chains of transmission will take off in our highly susceptible population, and the epidemic will reignite.
The government is mindful of that, while at the same time is trying to give businesses a little bit of hope.
We are extremely hopeful that we will be able to begin to restore a certain measure of economic activity in the coming months after this first wave is passed.
But even before that happens, the government has to pass the wage subsidy program to help keep Canadians employed. And late today, we learned the House of Commons will hold a special Saturday sitting to do just that. Donna?
Mike Couture in Ottawa, thank you. We knew closing all non-essential businesses would hit hard. Today, new numbers are showing how hard. At least 1 million people in Canada lost their jobs in March, an unprecedented number, pushing the unemployment rate to 7.8%. The service industry has been hardest hit, and as Eric Sorensen explains, the impact affects every corner of the country.
The restaurants are empty, small businesses shut down, hotels without guests, shopping centers cleared out, and on and on. More than any other sector, the service industry has been decimated by the pandemic. Of the 1 million jobs lost, 963,000 were in the service industries, retail, wholesale, full-time, part-time. The unemployment rate for the country jumped 2.2%, the largest one-month increase on record.
This is a huge economic shock, and it is going to cause a contraction in the economy. And then we're going to see the employment effects of that as well.
Unprecedented job loss, but jobs not lost forever.
We're asking people to basically shut down temporarily. So this isn't necessarily permanent jobs lost, it's temporary jobs being displaced thanks to COVID-19.
To put a loss of 1 million jobs in perspective, the previous high was 125,000 jobs in the historic recession of 2009. The difference in magnitude is stunning. The unemployment jolt was felt across the country. Almost 50,000 jobs were lost in Atlantic Canada, more than 260,000 in Quebec, over 400,000 in Ontario, another 160,000 across the 3 prairie provinces, most of them in Alberta, and then 130,000 plus in BC. No region was spared. In the hard-hit service sector across the country, some groups are disproportionately affected. Women, young workers, vulnerable workers in low-paying jobs. And the numbers only reflect the beginning of the pandemic. A month from now, 1 million job losses could be 2 million. And yet, it would be worse, but for the stimulus from Ottawa and other governments, emergency benefits going to millions of Canadians.
They actually can't stop the economic contraction, but they can certainly temper how bad it is, and they can also help stage the recovery that we expect later in the year.
Federal dollars prompted WestJet, like Air Canada, to put thousands back on the payroll. And Ontario, one of the first to strike a new Jobs and Recovery Committee, injecting some economic optimism.
We will come back stronger and more united than ever before.
Not just looking for light, but trying to create light at the end of the tunnel. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
We will continue to consult with experts and try to answer your questions. You can send them to yourquestions@globalnews.ca. And on our website, you'll find a special page dedicated entirely to COVID-19. That's at globalnews.ca/coronavirus.